Today we're going to discuss environmental issues a property may have. So today's discussion is a really sensitive one because septic tanks, oil tanks, leaking oil tanks, asbestos, mold, radon, lead paint, all of this falls under environmental. It's part of the home inspection. It's part of, some of it is part of a general home inspection and others is part of a specific home inspection. Let's talk about, did you know that septic tanks, based on the town, are not required to be taken out of the ground as long as it is decommissioned properly? So a buyer can't say, oh, yes, I know it was decommissioned properly and it's good being underground, but I still want it out. That's considered an upgrade. Did you guys know that? Did you know that, Scott?
I didn't, and I would say unless it's specified otherwise in attorney review. Sometimes attorney review will say if there's an underground storage tank, that they make it automatic that it has to be removed.
Right. They do
not
make it, so we have to be careful what's on the
remediated.
contract. Rachel, they may make it automatic in the contract, but it doesn't mean we can't push back,
Right, that's right.
right? Push back,
The other
depending on
weird
the
thing,
town.
the other weird thing is when I started here, you were allowed, when I started working 13 years ago as a realtor, you were allowed to keep sand-filled
Yes,
oil tanks in the ground.
yes.
And these people thought they were doing the right thing and they filled it with sand and now all of a sudden.
And they
have
spent
to
the
come-
same amount of money.
And now they have to come out. And these people are like, but you told me. I'm like, sorry. You know, the attorney back then allowed them to keep it. Now they're selling the house 10 years later and they're like,
Well, just like a
now
flood
they have to
zone.
remove it.
It's similar to a flood zone because just because, it's not in, your house is not in a flood zone right now, the flood map may change and now it is. So, things change. So, but as far as like a tank sweep goes, oh my God, this is like the worst nightmare of everyone. Did you ever, Scott, have anything that was leaking?
Yes. I had I'll tell you quick, this was representing a buyer. The buyer bought a house and it had been converted to gas when the owners bought it.
Right.
And they bought it on the assumption that, that there were no tanks.
Right.
Which is similar to when a tank is pulled, people assume that was the only tank. Having a tank recently pulled does not prove that there are no tanks on the property, by the way. So in this case, they assumed that the tank was there. Because I tell every buyer to have a tank sweep.
Absolutely.
No matter what evidence or reports or
Whether
whatever.
it's a new construction or a
Every-
1950s.
always.
Doesn't matter.
Always.
Now, Rachel, you mentioned something to me where you had a client, a buyer that did the tank sweep and they had the cars parked in the driveway. So you had to make a phone call to the agent to
Yes.
say,
You have to move the cars.
why,
Because they can generate a positive result.
right?
Yeah.
But also, many, many, many years ago, the tanks were under the driveway.
Right.
A lot of times it's under the driveway, and people park their cars over because they want to maybe hide something. A lot of sellers know they have an oil tank, and you need to disclose this. And, a lot of buyers, they don't think about it, but when an agent is there, even the person that is doing the tank sweep, they need to say something, and sometimes they don't. And say, oh, it's okay, I'll just go around it. No. So there's lots of other environmental issues that can come about. It's about what the town requires. It's about, whether it needs to be done. Is it a health hazard in order for you to remediate? Because sometimes it's considered an upgrade. Also, before I go, there are environmental issues such as asbestos around the piping in the basement, but it's encapsulated. The seller can push back and say, no, this is encapsulated. This is not a health hazard.
And that will pass often, and often
Yeah.
the vintage homes
Yeah.
commonly have asbestos
Right.
around the pipes in the basement.
Right.
That's where you're going to see it. The
But if it's
older homes.
encapsulated, it's safe. It's considered to be safe and not a health hazard. So if you as a homeowner know you have environmental things that you need to address, I would highly recommend doing it before you put it on the market. Because a lot of times, whether it is safe or not, it's going to freak a buyer out. And they will find other ways to kill the deal. They will, they'll panic.